Well, you see, that's the whole point, is the word lie needs to be defined.
The crux of the matter is a telephone company wants Reverend Charles Bullock and Christ Memorial Baptist Church to make a decision on who should get this phone number based on this agreement of the parties that was signed on May 27th of 1994 between Morey, his wife, Doug Shank, myself, and Gary Wessels. And we've already discussed a lot of this agreement of the parties situation in the studio version, so I won't go into detail there, but you know what we're referencing to. Okay, and what the telephone company sent along with that letter to Reverend Charles Bullock is a partial copy of the agreement of the parties, where they highlight right here. It says point 9, Larry and Gary Wessels agreed to inform and authorize the local telephone company servicing Austin, Texas, to release the REF telephone number 512-441-0592, currently listed in Larry Wessels' name for REF's exclusive use. Okay, and as you read down here, point 10 is about if there's any dispute, it's to be handled by Christ Memorial Baptist and Pastor Bullock and the deacons of Christ Memorial Baptist Church. So here's your arbitrator right here mentioned, and Morey sends this to the telephone company to dispute the phone number. Okay, and so the telephone company gets this and sends a copy off to Reverend Bullock. And Morey also had sent a copy of the signed, how the agreement was signed, and here you see all the signatures: Morey, Larry Wessels, Ann Morey, Gary Wessels, and Doug Shank, when this agreement was signed and took place. So anyway, I don't have, when I first got the letter, I was drafting a response, but before I could draft a response, I then got, and of course it's right here, I got this in the mail. I opened my mailbox one day and I got this package thing from Southwestern Bell in my mailbox before I could even respond to this letter I just went over with you. Okay, and basically this is a Xerox of it. So I open this up. Now this one is dated November the 8th, 1995, so it's a little less than 2 weeks after the first letter gets to me. And here's what it says. It says, Dear Mr. Wessels, per correspondence received from Reverend Charles Bullock, please find a copy enclosed. We are setting telephone number area code 512-441-0592 up as a telebranch service for Dr. Robert A. Morey and the Research and Education Foundation. Since this service is currently billed in your name, we need your signature on the enclosed transfer of service agreement to officially release this number to Dr. Morey. Then if you would please place the agreement in the envelope addressed to Dr. Morey along with the return envelope for his signature so that we can return the form to our office, we would greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to continue telebranch service for yourself, we can assign you another number and set it up waiving normal installation charges. Thank you for your assistance in this matter. Sincerely, Thomas J. Wagner, Service Representative. So before I can even respond to the first letter, here I get this letter from the telephone company telling me that they've received mail, apparently, or correspondence from Reverend Charles Bullock of Christ Memorial Baptist Church, the arbitrator, and he's given the number over to Robert Morey. And I'm going to have to give up my number, sign some transfer papers, and they'll give me another number at free installation charge. Well, obviously this didn't sit too well with me. And in fact, when the telephone company sent me this letter on November 8th, 1995, they also sent a copy of the letter that Reverend Charles Bullock had sent them, okay, according to this letter anyway. And here's what the telephone company had sent me. They've got a copy in here, and it just says, Thomas J. Wagner, Southwestern Bell, blah, blah, Dear Mr. Wagner, according to the arbitration agreement signed by all parties, the telephone number, area code 512-441-0592, now belongs to the Research and Education Foundation. Thus, the account for this number should be listed and billed to the Research and Education Foundation, and all forthcoming calls should be forwarded to them at area code 717-582-8600. This statement also absolves Southwestern Bell from any claims and matter pertaining to this telephone number. Sincerely yours, Pastor Charles Bullock, Christ Memorial Baptist Church. And so anyway, the phone company sends me a copy of this, saying, well, they've got this letter now from Pastor Charles Bullock, and so I've got to give up the number. But what's funny is I look at this number, I look at this letter, and I notice there's no date on the letter. I notice that it's not signed by Pastor Bullock. There's no, usually Pastor Bullock's mail and stuff has a letterhead of some sort on it. It has no letterhead. And when I'm reading the writing, it sounds very familiar to me. It sounds like a man named Mr. Morey could have written this because of the way it's worded. And also the way the print style is, it almost looks like it comes off a certain computer word processor that Mr. Morey happens to possess. Anyway, these are the things I'm going through my mind when I look at this letter, and I'm not convinced at all. So anyway, I fire off a letter pretty quick now. I don't drag my feet any longer. After I get this, I go ahead and fire off a letter to Mr. Wagner, and I explain everything, what's going on here in this letter to Mr. Wagner. It's like 3 pages long. I won't go into all the details or read everything to you. I'll go over a few details, but I'll do it briefly. But I explained the situation to Mr. Wagner, and here's what I basically explained to him. I explained, well, first of all, he sent me this mail and correspondence before I even had a chance to respond or say anything. And then I point out to him that this letter from Pastor Bullock is very suspicious because it's not signed, it's not dated, it doesn't read like something Pastor Bullock would write. It doesn't have an official church letterhead on it or anything that would make you think it's coming from Christ Memorial. And my argument to Mr. Wagner is that this letter is not valid. I argue that it's not valid, it's not signed, and I then explained to him that I had just seen Pastor Bullock at Christ Memorial not long before, right before Pastor had his church service at Christ Memorial Baptist Church, and I did it in the presence of another witness, Bob L. Ross, who went with me. And we had talked to Pastor Bullock, and he had told us nothing had been decided. And to have this happen just a few days later was very suspicious to me. Here's a letter I asked about Pastor Bullock. Did you write that letter that was sent to Mr. Wagner, and all of this stuff? And when Pastor Bullock sent a copy of this, in fact, here's the original right here. He emailed me, Christ Memorial Baptist Church, written to Larry Wessels, here at my home address, and the letters are in here. These are Xeroxes of it, but he sent me a copy of this so I'd know. But I'd asked him if he had sent that letter to Mr. Wagner at Southwestern Bell, and this is his response. And in fact, Pastor Bullock at Christ Memorial, there's the letterhead, there's the date, December 4th, 1995, and here's the signature down here, Pastor Charles Bullock. I asked Pastor Bullock if he had sent that letter to the telephone company. Now here's what he replied. He sent a copy of this to Bob Morey, and then I mailed a copy of this to Mr. Wagner myself after I got a copy. But here's what Pastor Bullock said to Bob Morey of the Research and Education Foundation, Post Office Box 250, Newport, Pennsylvania, 17074. He says, "Dear Bob, this letter is sent. The letter you sent to Mr. Wagner of Southwestern Bell was very disturbing to me. By letter I mean the fraudulent one you sent without getting my approval, much less my signature. In the future, I would appreciate you not representing my opinion in any given matter unless I approve. By the way, I am hearing things from different people that I was at fault about arbitration. Bob, you know and I know, and more importantly, God knows this is not true. You were given 90 days to act, and you failed to do so. Any arbitration beyond this 90-day period, should I do it, is voluntary. I have not failed, nor my church. Regarding arbitration, you are at fault. Please state the facts correctly if you must talk. Sincerely, Charles Bullock, Pastor." So this is Pastor Bullock's response to that letter sent to the phone company.
Yes, this is Tom Wagner with Southwestern Bell Telephone. I just needed to leave a message for Mr. Wessels, Mr. Larry Wessels, just to advise him that the telephone service here on the telebranch number 4410592, as far as Southwestern Bell Telephone is concerned, this telephone number does belong to you, Mr. Wessels. The telephone service has been appropriated by normal legal Southwestern Bell policy.